Don't you dare shame us tonight." My daughter-in-law hissed those words into my ear. Her manicured nails pressed into my arm. We stood at the wedding table. My hands shook. The champagne glass slipped. It shattered against marble. Conversations died around us. I froze in silence, humiliated. The family's first toast had become my public execution. 200 guests stared at the woman in navy. At me. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Let me tell you how I got here. My name is Helen Parker. I am 55 years old. Tonight was my son's wedding reception. I wore a dress I bought on sale. I arrived alone. I sat where they told me to sit. I did not expect to be seen. But sometimes invisibility fails you. Sometimes the past catches up. And sometimes it happens in front of 200 people. My late husband Mark and I were hardware engineers. We were good at our jobs. Mark designed a chip. A small thing. It changed how batteries held power. We sold the patent for $22 million. We did not buy yachts. We did not buy fame. We bought time. We bought options. We bought the future in small, careful pieces. Real estate that made sense. Stakes in founders who built real things. We compounded quietly. We compounded well. By the time Mark died, we had built something large. Something that didn't shout. I kept going. I kept building. My son Eric never knew the full number. I never told him. He grew up normal. He worked hard. He earned his promotions. He became a product strategist. A good one. On his own merit. That was my gift to him. A life without strings. Without whispers. 3 years ago, Charles Grant overextended his company. Grant Dynamics. The bones were solid. The books were a mess. The debt was crushing. I saw opportunity where others saw failure. I bought it through a shell company. I installed operators who knew what they were doing. I kept my name out of sight. I kept Eric's head clear. The company survived. Charles kept his title, his dignity. He never knew who saved him. Until tonight. Then Eric met Olivia Grant. Charles's daughter. She was polished. She was confident. She had an MBA and a trust fund memory. Eric fell in love. I stayed quiet. They got engaged. I stayed quiet. They planned a wedding. I stayed quiet. I thought I could stay invisible a little longer. That brings us back to the wedding table. The champagne glass. The marble floor. The silence. Olivia stood beside me in silk. Her hand rested on my shoulder. Light. Dismissive. Like I was a stain she had to acknowledge. She told her parents I was the family embarrassment. The one they were stuck with. Her tone was smooth. Practiced. Like she'd said it before. She said I had no sense of occasion. No refinement. She said Eric deserved better. Better than a mother who embarrassed him. I said nothing. I had learned that skill a long time ago. Silence is a kind of power. Especially when people assume you have none. 200 pairs of eyes turned. They landed on me. The quiet one at table 12. The woman in navy. Charles Grant stood across the table. His tuxedo was perfect. His face was not. The color drained from his skin. His mouth opened slightly. He stared at me like he'd seen a ghost. Then he whispered my name. Helen Parker. Not a +1. Not someone's aunt. Not a woman who didn't matter. The woman from the acquisition table. 3 years ago. The one who bought his company. I watched him remember. I watched him realize. His hands gripped the edge of the table. His wife touched his arm. She asked him what was wrong. He didn't answer. He couldn't answer. Olivia kept talking. She didn't notice. She was still performing for her mother. But Charles had gone pale. His eyes stayed locked on mine. Then he said my name again. Louder this time. Helen Parker. He said I was the principal investor. The one who saved Grant Dynamics. The one who owned it now. The table went silent. Olivia stopped mid-sentence. She looked at her father. Then at me. I saw the moment it clicked. The moment she started calculating. Her mother leaned in. She whispered something sharp. Olivia's expression changed. The performance was over. The assessment had begun. Other guests began to notice. Conversations dimmed. Heads turned. The room felt smaller, hotter, like the walls were closing in. Eric appeared at my side. He touched my arm gently. His face was full of concern. He asked if I was okay. He didn't understand yet. He didn't know what his father-in-law had just revealed. I looked at my son. His kind eyes. His honest face. I had built everything to protect this. To give him a clean start. And now it was unraveling in real time. Olivia turned to Eric. Her voice was different now. Sharper. Colder. She asked him if he knew. If he'd known all along. Eric looked confused. He asked what she was talking about. She said his mother owned her father's company. Had owned it for 3 years. She said I had deceived them. Hidden the truth. Played games with their family. Eric's face changed. Confusion became shock. Shock became something harder to name. He looked at me. He asked if it was true. I nodded. Once. Clean. The silence that followed felt like falling. Charles tried to speak. He said I had saved them. Saved everything. Olivia cut him off. She said I had manipulated them. Used them. Her voice rose. Other tables were definitely listening now. I stood. My legs felt steady. My voice felt steadier. I told Eric we would talk tomorrow. I told him I loved him. Then I walked out. I did not run. I did not rush. I walked through 200 guests. Past white roses. Past crystal. I walked out into the cold night air. My car was parked 3 blocks away. I had not wanted valet attention. I walked those blocks in heels. I felt every step. The city was quiet. Streetlights reflected off wet pavement. I reached my car. I sat in the driver's seat. I did not cry. I had not cried in years. I stared at the dashboard. I thought about what came next. Olivia would dig. She would ask questions. She would hire people. Charles would talk. He would tell her everything he knew. Eric would be caught in the middle. Confused. Hurt. Maybe angry. The life I built in shadows was about to flood with light. I started the engine. The heater hummed to life. I drove home through empty streets. My house was small. Paid off. In a neighborhood that didn't ask questions. I parked in the garage. I locked the door behind me. Inside, everything was exactly as I'd left it. Quiet. Ordered. Mine. I made tea. Earl Grey. No sugar. I sat at my kitchen table. The one Mark and I bought at a yard sale. I opened my laptop. I pulled up files I hadn't reviewed in months. 15 years of work. Structures. Entities. Holdings. Every layer documented. Every contingency planned. I had always known this moment might come. I had prepared for it the way I prepared for everything. Carefully. Thoroughly. Now I would see if preparation was enough. The tea grew cold in my hands. Outside, the city slept. Inside, I began to plan for war. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The morning came too early. I woke at 5. I always wake at 5. Old habits from engineering days. Early shifts. Quiet hours before the world wakes. I made coffee, strong, black, the way Mark used to make it. The kitchen smelled like routine, like any other Tuesday. But this wasn't any other Tuesday. My phone sat on the counter. Silent. Accusing. No calls from Eric. I didn't expect any. Not yet. He would need time. Time to process. Time to feel betrayed. I understood that. I had taken something from him. Not money. Not comfort. Something harder to name. The illusion that his life was entirely his own. I sat at the table. I drank my coffee slowly. Outside, the neighbor's dog barked. The garbage truck rumbled past. Normal sounds. A normal morning. Except nothing was normal anymore. By 8, my phone finally rang. Eric's name appeared on the screen. I let it ring twice. Then I answered. His voice was careful, controlled. He said he needed to see me. He said we needed to talk. Today. This morning. I told him to come by. I would make breakfast. He said he wasn't hungry. He would be there in an hour. The line went dead. I stood in my kitchen. I looked around. This house had been my sanctuary. My fortress of ordinary. 3 bedrooms. 1 bathroom. A garage that leaked in heavy rain. I had bought it for cash 15 years ago. Nothing flashy. Nothing that made neighbors curious. The kind of house a widow on a fixed income might own. That was the story I had lived. The story I had sold. Now that story was crumbling. I tidied the living room. I put away my laptop. I made the bed. I straightened the throw pillows Mark's mother had given us. Small actions. Concrete tasks. They helped me think. Eric arrived at 9:15. He parked in the driveway. He sat in his car for 3 full minutes. I watched from the window. I didn't go out to him. He needed those minutes. I could give him that. Finally, he got out. He walked to the door slowly. His shoulders were tight. His jaw was set. I opened the door before he could knock. He looked tired. Lines around his eyes I hadn't noticed before. He stepped inside without a word. I closed the door. I gestured to the couch. He sat. I sat across from him. The coffee table between us. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then Eric leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his hands clasped. He asked me if it was true. All of it. I told him yes. It was true. He asked why I never told him. I said I wanted him to build his own life. Without shadows. Without weight. He asked if I thought he was weak. Incapable. A child to be protected. I said no. I said I thought he was strong. Strong enough to earn everything himself. He shook his head. He said I had lied. By omission. For years. I didn't argue. He was right. He asked how much. How much money? How many companies? I told him I didn't think that mattered right now. He said it mattered to him. It mattered a lot. So I told him. The number. The portfolio. The scope. His face went blank. Then red. Then blank again. He stood up. He paced to the window. He stared out at the street. He said Olivia was furious. Her family was furious. They felt manipulated, used, made to look like fools. I asked him what he felt. He turned to face me. His eyes were hard. He said he felt like he didn't know me. Like I was a stranger. The woman who raised him had been real. Present. Kind. This other woman. The one who owned companies. Who played chess with fortunes. He didn't know her at all. I told him I was the same person. Both versions were real. He said that was impossible. Those two people couldn't exist in one body. I said they did. They had. For a very long time. He asked about his father. If Mark had been part of this too. I said yes. Mark and I built it together. At first. After he died, I kept building. Alone. Eric asked why. Why keep going? Why keep growing the pile? I said because I was good at it. Because it gave me purpose. Because after Mark died, I needed something to make me feel alive. He looked at me like I'd slapped him. He said he thought he was my purpose. He and his father. I told him he was. He had been. He always would be. But a person can have more than one purpose. He didn't like that answer. I could see it in his face. He asked about Grant Dynamics. About Charles. I told him the truth. Charles had overextended. The company was failing. I bought it. I saved it. I kept jobs intact. Families fed. Eric asked if I did it because of him. Because of Olivia. I said no. I did it 3 years ago. Before they met. It was business. Good business. Nothing more. He asked if that was supposed to make it better. I said I didn't know. Maybe not. He sat back down. He put his head in his hands. For a minute, I thought he might cry. But he didn't. When he looked up, his face was harder. Older. He said Olivia wanted to meet with me. With her parents. With lawyers. They wanted answers. They wanted assurances. Maybe they wanted money. I asked what he wanted. He said he wanted his life back. The simple one. The one that made sense. I told him I couldn't give him that. No one could. We sat in silence. The clock on the wall ticked. Steady. Relentless. Finally, Eric stood. He said he needed time. Space to think. I nodded. I told him I understood. He walked to the door. He put his hand on the knob. Then he stopped. He turned back. He asked if I loved him. Really loved him. I said yes. More than anything. Always. He nodded once. Then he left. I watched his car back out of the driveway. I watched it disappear down the street. Then I closed the door. I stood in my empty living room. The house felt larger, colder. I walked to my bedroom. I opened the closet. On the top shelf, behind old sweaters, was a box. I pulled it down. I opened it. Inside were photos, letters, documents from the early days. Mark and me at the patent signing. Young, excited, nervous. Investment statements from our first real estate deal. A newspaper clipping about a startup we'd backed. It had gone public. These were the breadcrumbs. The proof that this life was real. I closed the box. I put it back. Then I called Nathan Cole. My financial advisor. My strategist. He answered on the second ring. I told him what happened. The wedding. The revelation. Eric's visit. Nathan was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. He said we needed to prepare. The grants would come hard. They would dig. They would demand. They might even threaten. I told him I was ready. He said he would pull together everything we had. Every document. Every structure. We would meet tomorrow. Early. His office. I agreed. I thanked him. I hung up. I looked around my small house. My fortress of ordinary. It had protected me for 15 years. Now I would see if it could protect me through what came next. I made another cup of coffee. I sat at my kitchen table. I opened my laptop again. And I began to prepare for war. Not with guns. Not with rage. With documents. With truth. With the power I'd built in silence. They wanted to know who I was. I would show them. Every detail. Every dollar. Every decision. And then I would show them why invisibility had been a choice. Not weakness. Not shame. Strategy. The sun climbed higher. The day moved forward. I sat in my kitchen. I worked. And I waited. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. 3 days passed before Olivia reached out. 3 days of silence from Eric. 3 days of waiting. I kept my routine. Coffee at 5. Work at 6. Lunch at noon. I walked the neighborhood every evening. Same route. Same pace. The mailman waved. The neighbor's dog barked. Life continued around me. But I was preparing. Quietly. Thoroughly. Nathan and I had met twice. Long meetings in his downtown office. We reviewed every structure, every holding, every contingency plan. He asked if I wanted to settle. To offer something preemptively. I said no. Let them show their hand first. On the 4th morning, my phone buzzed. A text from Olivia. She wanted to meet for lunch. Today. Just the two of us. She named a restaurant. Expensive. Downtown. Her territory. I texted back. One word. Fine. I arrived 15 minutes early. The restaurant was the kind with white tablecloths and waiters in vests. Soft music. Dim lighting. Conversations kept to murmurs. I gave Olivia's name. The hostess smiled. She led me to a corner table. Olivia was already there. I had been wrong about being early. She sat straight. Hair perfect. Makeup flawless. A glass of red wine breathed in front of her. Bordeaux, probably. I sat down across from her. She smiled. The smile didn't reach her eyes. She said she appreciated me coming. Her tone was measured. Professional. A waiter appeared. I ordered water. Nothing else. Olivia waited until he left. Then she slid her phone across the table. On the screen was a photo. Grainy. Slightly out of focus. A woman in a navy dress at a conference table. Papers spread before her. The woman was me. 3 years ago. The Grant Dynamics signing. Olivia said she found it interesting. The timing. The discretion. She said shell companies fascinated her. The layers. The beneficial owners. So elegant, she said. So carefully constructed. I said nothing. I let her talk. She asked if Eric knew. Back then. When I bought his future father-in-law's company. I said no. Eric never knew. She asked why not. Why keep such a significant detail hidden? I said because it wasn't his business. It was mine. Her smile tightened. She said family should be transparent. Honest. Open with each other. I asked if her family shared every financial detail. Every investment. Every debt. Her expression shifted. Just slightly. She changed direction. She said her father was grateful. Truly. I had saved the company. Saved their dignity. Saved their home. But the secrecy felt like manipulation. Like I'd been pulling strings in the dark. I asked what she wanted. She took a sip of wine. She set the glass down carefully. She said she wanted to understand. To build trust. To move forward as family. Then she opened her briefcase. She pulled out a folder. Inside were documents. Proposals. Projections. She had done her homework. I could see that immediately. She suggested creating a family foundation. Shared governance. Cross-generational planning. Her MBA was showing. The language was polished. Professional. She talked about legacy. About building something together. About giving Eric a real stake in his family's wealth. I listened. I didn't interrupt. She laid out org charts. Board structures. Advisory committees. She had thought this through. Or someone had thought it through for her. When she finished, she looked at me expectantly. I asked a simple question. I asked if she understood what she was actually proposing. She said yes. Partnership. Collaboration. Family unity. I said no. What she was proposing was access. Access to my accounts, my decisions, my structures. She said that wasn't fair. She wanted transparency, not control. I asked what she had spent on the investigation. The one that found that photo. Her face went still. I said the name. Ashford Investigations. They weren't cheap. I asked how she paid for it. The retainer alone was substantial. She said that was personal. Between her and her bank. I told her I knew about the credit lines. 3 new accounts. Opened last month. Her jaw tightened. I asked if Eric knew she'd gone into debt to investigate his mother. She said I had no right to pry into her finances. I said she had no right to pry into mine. But she had. So now we understood each other. The waiter appeared. He asked if we were ready to order. Olivia waved him away. Her composure was cracking. She said I was being unreasonable. Hostile even. Her family deserved answers. They deserved respect. I said respect is earned, not demanded. I told her about the consulting fees. The ones keeping her parents afloat. Charles received $30,000 monthly. Through my operators. Without that income, they would lose the house within 6 months. Her face went white. I said her father knew. He'd always known who paid him. He just never told her. Or her mother. Maybe transparency wasn't a family value after all. She recovered quickly. I had to admire that. She said that proved her point. We were already connected financially. Why not formalize it? Why not work together? I asked her a different question. I asked if she loved my son. She blinked. She said of course she did. I asked again. Did she love Eric? Or did she love the version of Eric that came with access? She said that was insulting. I said it was honest. I told her I had built everything to give Eric a clean life. A life where he earned respect on his own merit. Not through my money. She had discovered the money. Fine. That couldn't be undone. But she wouldn't get her hands on it. She leaned back. Her eyes were hard now. The MBA polish was gone. She said I was making a mistake. Her family had connections, resources, lawyers. If I refused to cooperate, they would find other ways. I asked what that meant. She said there were regulatory questions, disclosure requirements, compliance reviews. Things could get complicated, expensive, public, unless we could reach an understanding. I stood up. I told her lunch was over. I told her if she wanted war, I would give her war. But she should know what she was starting. I had spent 15 years building systems designed to withstand scrutiny. Every structure was legal. Every document was filed. Every disclosure was complete. She could dig all she wanted. She would find nothing but competence. I walked out. I left her sitting at the table. Wine glass half empty. Folder still open. I walked through the restaurant. Past the white tablecloths. Past the murmuring voices. Outside, the sun was bright. The sidewalk was crowded. I walked 3 blocks to where I'd parked. My hands were shaking. Just slightly. Not from fear. From anger. She had threatened me. Threatened what I'd built. Worse, she had threatened to drag Eric through regulatory mud. That, I would not allow. I sat in my car. I took 3 deep breaths. Then I called Nathan. I told him about the meeting. The proposals. The threats. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said we needed to move faster. Prepare for real escalation. He said he'd make some calls. Pull some files. We would meet tomorrow morning. Early. I agreed. I hung up. I drove home through afternoon traffic. My small house waited. Quiet. Unchanged. I parked in the garage. I went inside. I made tea. I sat at my kitchen table. I thought about Eric. About the choice ahead of him. His wife wanted to weaponize his mother's wealth. His mother wanted to protect him from becoming a target. He was caught between two women who both claimed to love him. But only one of us was willing to let him go. I drank my tea. I opened my laptop. I began documenting everything from the lunch. Every word, every threat, every implication. If Olivia wanted a paper trail, I would give her one. But it would be mine to control. The afternoon faded. The kitchen grew dark. I sat in the shadows. I worked. And I prepared for what came next. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Nathan called me at 6 in the morning. His voice was tight, controlled, the way it got when things were serious. He said we had a problem. A real one. Someone had filed inquiries with the SEC. Questions about my ownership structures. Specifically, questions about timing. About disclosures around 2 acquisitions. Grant Dynamics was one of them. I asked if the filings were legitimate concerns. Nathan said no. Everything was legal, properly documented, fully disclosed. But inquiries create smoke, and smoke makes people nervous. Nervous investors, nervous partners, nervous regulators who feel obligated to look harder. I asked who filed. He said the requests were anonymous, routed through a law firm. But the timing was obvious. 3 days after my lunch with Olivia, I told him I understood. He said we needed to meet. Today. His office. 10 o'clock. Bring nothing, he said. We had everything we needed already on file. I arrived at Nathan's office at 9:45. The building was downtown, glass and steel, 23 floors. Nathan's firm occupied the 18th floor. Quiet, expensive, discreet. His assistant showed me to the conference room. Nathan was already there. So was someone else. A woman in her 40s. Sharp suit, sharper eyes. Nathan introduced her as Rebecca Chen. Attorney. Specialist in regulatory defense. We shook hands. Her grip was firm, professional. We sat. Nathan opened a folder. Inside were the SEC inquiry letters. Formal, dense with legal language. Rebecca walked me through them. The questions were technical but pointed. They wanted documentation on beneficial ownership, on disclosure timing, on related party transactions. I asked if we had everything they wanted. Rebecca said yes. Every document existed. Every filing was complete. But responding would take time. And it would create a record. A record that Olivia's lawyers could potentially access later. Nathan leaned forward. He said this was about pressure, not prosecution. They wanted me scared, willing to settle, willing to pay for silence. I asked what they thought I would pay. Nathan pulled out another document. A settlement proposal. It had arrived that morning. Hand-delivered to his office. From Victor Lang, Olivia's attorney. The proposal was presented as a family reconciliation framework. The language was soft, collaborative, forward-thinking, but the terms were clear. They wanted a family trust. My assets transferred into shared governance. Board positions for Charles and Olivia. Advisory control over major decisions. In exchange, they would withdraw all inquiries, all investigations, all concerns. The proposal called it building legacy together. I called it extortion with a bow. Rebecca said we had options. We could fight the SEC inquiries, provide documentation, demonstrate compliance, clear our name completely, but it would be public. It would be exhausting. It would cost time and money. Or we could settle. On our terms. Buy silence. Buy distance. I asked what she recommended. She said that depended on what I wanted. If I wanted to win, we would fight. And we would win eventually. If I wanted peace, we would negotiate. From a position of strength. I sat back. I looked at the conference table. Polished wood. Reflected light. Everything clean and hard. I thought about Eric. About the wedding. About Olivia's threats. I thought about Mark. About the life we'd built with our hands. About the empire we'd grown from one good idea and patience. I asked Nathan what the Grants' financial situation really looked like. He opened another folder. This one thicker. Charles and Elaine's complete financial picture. The house was mortgaged. Twice. Once officially. Once through a private note. Brokerage accounts were nearly empty. Drained over 5 years. Credit cards were maxed. Personal loans from friends. Small amounts. Many sources. The consulting fees I provided were 90% of their monthly income. Without them, foreclosure would happen within 90 days. Olivia's situation was slightly better. But not much. Her MBA had cost her. Student loans. Still substantial. Her lifestyle exceeded her income. Significantly. The credit lines I'd mentioned were just the latest patch. She was drowning slowly. Elegantly. But drowning nonetheless. I asked about Charles's business. The one before I bought it. Nathan showed me the pre-acquisition financials. Charles had expanded too fast. Borrowed too aggressively. Bet too badly. By the time I stepped in, he was 6 months from bankruptcy. Personal bankruptcy. The kind that takes everything. I had saved him from that. Saved his reputation. His dignity. His family's home. And now his daughter was trying to leverage my generosity into control. I looked at Rebecca. I asked what a strong settlement would look like. She said we could offer a fixed payment. One time. Final. In exchange for complete withdrawal. Signed releases. Non-disclosure agreements. We could also terminate the consulting arrangement. Cut them off entirely. Or we could continue it. With new terms. New boundaries. Clear consequences. I thought about Eric again. He loved Olivia. Or he thought he did. This would hurt him. Whatever choice I made would hurt him. But staying silent had hurt him too. Invisibility had failed. Now I had to choose between bad options and worse ones. I asked Nathan to draft a counteroffer. I would pay $5 million. One time. Final. I would secure Charles and Elaine's home. Pay off the mortgages. Transfer the deed clear. I would continue Charles's consulting for 2 years. With a written contract. Performance-based. In exchange, all inquiries would be withdrawn. All investigations ended. All claims released. And Olivia would agree to a separation from Eric. No contest. Clean terms. Rebecca looked surprised. Nathan did too. Nathan asked if I was sure. About the separation clause. I said yes. Olivia had shown me who she was. She married Eric for access. Real or imagined. Now that she'd seen the real picture, she wanted control. Not partnership. Not love. Control. Eric deserved better than that. Even if he couldn't see it yet. Rebecca said the separation clause would never fly. Too personal. Too punitive. I said then we'd remove it. But I wanted it drafted first. I wanted them to see it. To understand the line I was drawing. Nathan nodded slowly. He understood. This wasn't just about money. It was about showing them I knew the game. And I played it better than they did. Rebecca said she would draft everything by end of day. We would send it tomorrow morning. Formal delivery. Legal and clean. I thanked them both. I stood to leave. Nathan walked me to the door. He asked if I was okay. I told him I was fine. I'd been preparing for this my whole life. He said I'd built something remarkable. Something worth protecting. I said I'd built it to protect Eric. Now I had to protect him from his own choices. I left the office. I took the elevator down. The lobby was busy. People in suits rushing. Coffee cups. Phone calls. Purpose. I walked out into the morning sun. The city moved around me. Indifferent. Relentless. I walked to my car. I sat inside. I called Eric. It rang 4 times. Then voicemail. I didn't leave a message. What could I say? Your wife is extorting me. I'm about to destroy her financially. I'm doing it because I love you. Because you deserve truth. Even if truth feels like betrayal. I started the car. I drove home. My neighborhood appeared. Familiar streets. Known houses. The mailman waved. The neighbor's dog barked. Everything normal. Everything the same. Except nothing was the same. I parked in my garage. I went inside. I made lunch. Soup from a can. Crackers. An apple. I ate at my kitchen table. I tasted nothing. My phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. Draft complete. Ready for my review. I texted back. Send it. 5 minutes later, my email chimed. I opened the document. I read every word. It was perfect. Clear. Strong. Unambiguous. It offered them a way out. A generous one. But it also showed them I understood their game. And I wouldn't play by their rules. I approved it. Tomorrow morning, Victor Lang would receive it. Tomorrow afternoon, the Grants would see it. Tomorrow night, Olivia would make a choice. Take the deal. Or escalate further. Either way, I was ready. I closed my laptop. I sat in my quiet kitchen. And I waited for tomorrow. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Nathan delivered the counteroffer himself. 9 o'clock the next morning. Hand-delivered to Victor Lang's office. Professional. Formal. Impossible to ignore. By noon, my phone started ringing. First Nathan. Then Rebecca. Then Nathan again. Victor Lang had responded. Faster than expected. He wanted a meeting. All parties. Tomorrow. His conference room. Nathan asked if I was ready for this. I said yes. I'd been ready for weeks. We scheduled it for 2 in the afternoon. Nathan's office, not Victor's. Home field advantage. Small things matter in negotiations. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed. I watched shadows move across the ceiling. Car headlights. Tree branches. The neighbor's porch light. I thought about what tomorrow would bring. A room full of people who wanted something from me. Money. Control. Silence. Compliance. I had built everything to avoid rooms like that. Now I was walking into one voluntarily. At 5, I gave up on sleep. I made coffee. I sat at my kitchen table. I watched the sun rise through my window. Pink light. Then orange. Then the hard white of morning. I showered. I dressed carefully. Navy suit. White blouse. Simple jewelry. Nothing flashy. The uniform of a woman who didn't need to impress anyone. I arrived at Nathan's office at 1:30. Rebecca was already there. We reviewed strategy one final time. Stay calm. Stay factual. Let them show their hand first. Offer nothing beyond what we'd already proposed. At 2 o'clock exactly, they arrived. Victor Lang came first. Tall. Silver hair. Expensive suit. He shook hands like he was measuring grip strength. Then Charles and Elaine. Charles looked tired, older than at the wedding. Elaine wore pearls and a forced smile. Finally, Olivia and Eric. Eric wouldn't meet my eyes. Olivia looked confident, prepared, ready for battle. We sat around the conference table. Nathan at one end, Victor at the other. The rest of us arranged like chess pieces between them. Victor opened. He thanked everyone for coming. He said this was about family, about finding common ground, about building something positive together. His tone was warm, practiced, completely fake. He said my counteroffer was generous. In some ways, but it missed the point of what family means. Family shares. Family collaborates. Family builds together. A one-time payment felt transactional, cold, dismissive of relationship. Nathan cut in. He said relationship requires trust. Trust requires honesty. Honesty had been absent from the beginning. Victor smiled. He said everyone had made mistakes. The important thing was moving forward, finding resolution. Then he slid a folder across the table. To me. Inside was a revised proposal. $3 million instead of 5. Immediate payment. The house secured, as I'd offered. But the consulting contract extended to 5 years. Not 2. And a family advisory board. Meeting quarterly. Reviewing major decisions. Not control, Victor emphasized. Just transparency. Just involvement. I read it twice. I let the silence build. Then I asked a question. I asked Olivia if she loved my son. The room went still. Victor started to object. I held up my hand. I repeated the question. Did she love Eric? Olivia's face flushed. She said of course she did. I asked her when she hired Ashford Investigations. She said that was private business. I said she hired them 2 weeks after the wedding. Before even approaching me, she said she needed to understand the situation. I asked if Eric knew about the investigation. She glanced at him. He looked shocked. She said she was protecting their future. Their family's future. I asked if she'd told Eric about the credit lines she opened to pay for it. Eric's head turned toward her. His face showed everything. Confusion. Hurt. Betrayal. Olivia said I had no right to invade her privacy. I said she invaded mine first. I turned to Charles. I asked him a different question. I asked if he'd told his daughter about our arrangement. About the consulting fees. About where they really came from. Charles looked down. He said nothing. I answered for him. I said he hadn't told her. For 3 years, he'd let her believe his income was legitimate. Earned. His own. Just like I'd let Eric believe I was just his mother. We'd both kept secrets. Both built false pictures. The difference was my secrets protected. His secrets just delayed consequences. Elaine spoke for the first time. She said this wasn't fair. We were all family now. We should work together. Support each other. Share burdens and blessings. I asked what she'd contributed recently. She looked offended. She said she'd raised a family. Maintained a home. Built a life. I said she'd also spent that life beyond her means. Borrowed from friends. Maxed credit cards. Lived on reputation and fumes. Nathan placed a document in front of me. The complete financial profile we'd compiled. Every debt. Every loan. Every gap. I didn't show it to them. I just let it sit there. A reminder that I knew everything. Victor tried to regain control. He said we were getting off track. This wasn't about blame. This was about finding a solution that worked for everyone. I said I'd already offered a solution. $5 million. The house secured. 2 years of consulting. Clean break. Victor said his clients wanted ongoing relationship. I said his clients wanted ongoing income. There was a difference. Olivia leaned forward. Her composure was cracking. She said I was being cruel, heartless, punishing them for asking questions. I said I was being clear. She had weaponized my privacy, threatened my structures, tried to leverage shame into compliance. That wasn't family. That was extortion. Eric finally spoke. His voice was quiet, strained. He asked if this was really necessary. All of this. He said we were family. We should be able to talk, to compromise. I looked at my son. I saw the boy he'd been, the man he'd become. I saw how much this was hurting him. But I also saw what he couldn't see yet. That Olivia had married him for access, real or imagined. That she'd investigated his mother before trying to build trust. That everything she'd done was calculation, not love. I asked him if he knew about the investigation. He said no. He looked at Olivia. She looked away. I asked if he knew about the credit card debt. He said no. His jaw tightened. I asked if Olivia had ever mentioned wanting to access my assets. He said they'd discussed it as a future possibility for family planning. I asked when those discussions started. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said 3 weeks ago. Right after the wedding. Right after Charles recognized me. The math was simple, brutal, clear. Victor tried again to redirect. He said emotions were running high. We should take a break. Come back tomorrow with cooler heads. I said no. I said they would accept my offer today, or I would withdraw it. And I would terminate Charles's consulting immediately. Victor said that was coercion. I said it was business. I stood. I told them they had 72 hours. 72 hours to withdraw every SEC inquiry, every investigation, every complaint. In exchange, I would pay the $5 million, secure the house, continue consulting for 2 years. But there would be one additional term. Olivia and Eric would separate, amicably, with fair terms for both. The room erupted. Victor objected. Olivia shouted. Elaine gasped. Eric just stared at me. I said Olivia had shown her priorities. Money over trust. Access over honesty. My son deserved better than that. Nathan placed the separation documents on the table. Already drafted. Already fair. Already final. I told them 72 hours. Then I walked out. I heard shouting behind me. Olivia's voice. Victor's voice. Charles trying to calm everyone. I didn't look back. I took the elevator down. My hands shook in my lap. Not from fear. From the weight of what I'd just done. I'd forced my son's hand. Demanded his marriage end. For his own good. For his protection. But he would hate me for it. At least for a while. I walked to my car. The afternoon was bright. Traffic was heavy. Life continued everywhere. I sat in the driver's seat. I waited for my hands to stop shaking. Then I drove home. To my small house. My quiet fortress. I had made my move. Now I would wait to see if they were smart enough to take the deal. Or foolish enough to fight a war they couldn't win. Either way, I had said what needed saying. I had drawn the line. And I would hold it. No matter what it cost. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The first 24 hours were silent. No calls. No texts. No contact from anyone. I kept my routine. Coffee at 5. Work at 6. Walk at 7. The neighbor waved. The mailman delivered catalogs. Life pretended to be normal. But I checked my phone constantly. waiting for Nathan's call, waiting for Eric's message, waiting for something to break. On the second day, Nathan finally called. His voice was careful, professional but strained. Victor Lang had responded, not with acceptance, with conditions. They wanted the $5 million. They wanted the house secured. But they refused the separation clause. And they wanted 3 years of consulting. Not 2. Nathan asked what I wanted to do. I said hold firm. No changes. No negotiations. They had one more day. That night, I couldn't eat. I made dinner. Chicken, rice, vegetables. I sat at the table. I moved food around my plate. Everything tasted like cardboard. I thought about Eric, about the wedding, about the glass shattering, how quickly everything had unraveled. I had spent 15 years building invisibility. 3 weeks had destroyed it completely. At 9 o'clock, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole. Eric stood on my porch. His hands were in his pockets. His shoulders were hunched. He looked exhausted. I opened the door. He asked if he could come in. I stepped aside. He walked past me into the living room. He didn't sit. He stood by the window, looking out at the dark street. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he asked why I was doing this. Destroying his marriage, weaponizing money, playing God with people's lives. I said I was protecting him. He turned to face me. His eyes were red. He said he didn't need protection. He needed his mother. The mother who taught him right from wrong. Who raised him with values. Not this person who threatened and manipulated and forced outcomes. I asked if he knew Olivia had investigated me before their honeymoon was over. He said yes. She'd told him. After the meeting, I asked if that bothered him. He said it hurt, but he understood why she did it. She was confused, scared, trying to understand a situation that made no sense. I asked if he knew she'd gone into debt to hire investigators. He said yes. He'd found the credit card statements. They'd had a fight about it. A bad one. But they were working through it. That's what married people do. I asked if he loved her. He said yes, of course. Why did I keep asking that? I said because love should be built on truth. And Olivia hadn't been truthful. Not from the start. Eric said I was one to talk about truth. I'd hidden my entire life from him. For decades. I said I hid it to protect him. He said that wasn't my choice to make. He was an adult. He deserved to know who his mother really was. Instead, he'd learned at his own wedding. In front of hundreds of people. Humiliated. Blindsided. Made to look like a fool. His voice cracked on that last word. I realized he wasn't just angry. He was hurt. Deeply hurt in a way that might not heal. I asked him what he wanted me to do. He said withdraw the separation demand. Let him make his own choices about his marriage. Pay the settlement. End the war. Let everyone move forward. I asked if Olivia would withdraw the SEC inquiries. He said yes. Victor had already agreed to that. I asked if Olivia would sign a non-disclosure agreement. He said yes. They'd agreed to that too. I asked what Olivia wanted in return. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said she wanted the advisory board. Quarterly meetings. Transparency on major holdings. Not control. Just involvement. Just family participation. I said that was control. Dressed in softer language. He said it was compromise. I said compromise requires good faith. Olivia had shown none. Eric's jaw tightened. He said I was being impossible. Punishing his wife for asking questions. For wanting to understand. I said she didn't want to understand. She wanted to access. There was a difference. He said I was wrong. I didn't know her like he did. I asked him what she'd said about me. Before the wedding. During the engagement. He was quiet. I asked again. What had Olivia said about his mother? He said she thought I was sweet. A bit lost after losing Dad. She'd suggested Eric help me more. Be more involved. Check in on me. Make sure I wasn't being taken advantage of. I asked when those suggestions started. He thought about it. He said maybe 6 months ago. Before the engagement. Before they'd set a wedding date. Around the same time Charles had mentioned something at a family dinner. Something about a silent investor who'd helped restructure Grant Dynamics. The timeline was damning, clear as daylight. Olivia had been calculating from the moment she suspected. Eric saw it on my face. The realization. The confirmation. He said it didn't matter. People make assumptions. It doesn't mean anything. I said it meant everything. She'd been positioning him. Positioning herself. Building access before asking permission. That wasn't love. That was strategy. Eric's face hardened. He said I was paranoid. Seeing conspiracies where there was just normal family curiosity. I asked why she'd opened 3 credit lines to investigate me. He said she wanted clarity. She wanted to know who she was marrying into. I said she wanted to know what she was marrying into. The distinction mattered. We stood in my living room. 10 feet apart. Miles between us. Eric said he came here hoping to find his mother. The woman who taught him kindness. Patience. Grace. Instead, he'd found someone he didn't recognize. Someone who valued control more than family. I said I valued his future. His freedom. His safety. He said by destroying his marriage? I said by exposing the truth. He shook his head slowly. He said if I forced this separation, he would never forgive me. He would take Olivia's side. Fight me legally. Publicly. However necessary. I said I understood. He waited like he expected me to back down. I didn't. He walked to the door. He opened it. Cold air rushed in. He said he'd tried. He'd come here willing to bridge the gap. But I'd made my choice. Now he would make his. He left. The door closed. The house fell silent. I stood in my living room. Alone. I had just lost my son. To protect my son. The logic made sense. The reality felt like drowning. I sat on the couch. I stared at the wall. The clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. The house breathed around me. At midnight, my phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. Victor Lang had accepted all terms, including the separation. Eric had agreed to sign. Olivia had agreed to sign. Papers would be ready tomorrow. Funds would transfer by end of week. It was done. I had won. I sat in the dark with my phone in my hand. Victory felt like ashes. I thought about Mark. About what he would say if he could see this. Would he be proud? Would he understand? Or would he say I'd gone too far? Sacrificed relationship for principle. Love for control. I didn't know. I would never know. I turned off my phone. I went to my bedroom. I lay in the dark. I didn't sleep. I just waited for morning. For the papers to be signed. For the money to transfer. For my son's marriage to end. For everything I'd built to finally, fully, protect him. Whether he wanted protection or not. Whether he forgave me or not. Whether I ever forgave myself or not. The night stretched on. Silent. Dark. Endless. And I lay there, waiting for dawn. Knowing that when it came, everything would be different. Everything would be done. And I would have to live with what I'd done. For the rest of my life. The price of love is sometimes loneliness. The price of protection is sometimes separation. I had paid both. In full. Tonight, the bill had come due. And I had nothing left but the knowledge that I'd done what I believed was right. Even if right felt wrong. Even if winning felt like losing. Even if tomorrow brought silence instead of gratitude. I closed my eyes. I waited for sleep that wouldn't come. And I prepared to face what I had created. Alone. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The papers were signed on a Thursday. Nathan's office. 10 in the morning. Everyone present but silent. Victor Lang brought the documents in a leather portfolio. Eric sat beside Olivia. They didn't touch. Didn't look at each other. Charles and Elaine sat together. Elaine's hands shook slightly. I sat across from them. Rebecca Chen beside me. Nathan at the head. The conference room felt smaller than before. The air heavier. Victor explained each document. His voice was flat. Professional. Defeated. Withdrawal of all SEC inquiries. Signed by Olivia and Charles. Non-disclosure agreements. Comprehensive. Binding. Permanent. Release of all claims. Past, present, future. Settlement agreement. $5 million. Paid within 72 hours. Property transfer documents. Charles and Elaine's house. Mortgages cleared. Deed transferred free and clear. Consulting contract. 2 years. Performance-based. Terminable for cause. And finally, the separation agreement. Eric and Olivia. Marriage dissolved. Assets divided. No contest. Victor slid the documents across the table. Everyone signed. One by one. Page after page. The sound of pens on paper. That was all. No one spoke. No one protested. It took 20 minutes. When it was done, Victor collected everything. He said the funds transfer would be confirmed by Monday. The house documents would be recorded by Wednesday. The separation would be final in 90 days. Then he stood. He shook Nathan's hand. Not mine. The Grants stood. Charles looked at me once. His eyes were empty. Elaine didn't look at all. Olivia gathered her purse. Her movements were sharp. Angry. Eric was the last to stand. He looked at me. Really looked. I saw everything in that look. Hurt. Betrayal. Resignation. I wanted to say something. Explain again. Make him understand. But words wouldn't help. They never had. He turned and walked out. Olivia followed. Then Charles and Elaine. Then Victor. The conference room emptied. Nathan, Rebecca, and I sat in silence. Finally, Nathan spoke. He said it was done. Clean. Final. Rebecca said I'd made the right choice. Protected my interests. Secured my position. I said nothing, because I wasn't sure I believed them. I went home. I sat in my kitchen. The house felt different. Quieter. Colder. Like something essential had been removed. I made tea. I didn't drink it. I stared at the wall. I had won. Completely. Decisively. And it felt like nothing. The days that followed were empty. I kept my routine. Coffee. Work. Walks. But everything felt mechanical. Distant. The neighbor still waved. The dog still barked. But I moved through it all like a ghost. On Monday, Nathan confirmed the funds transfer. Complete. Successful. On Wednesday, the house documents were recorded. Charles and Elaine owned their home free and clear. On Friday, the SEC inquiries were officially closed. No findings. No concerns. Everything I'd demanded had been delivered. I had my privacy back. My structures intact. My empire secure. But I ate dinner alone every night. And my phone never rang. Weeks passed. Then a month. I heard nothing from Eric. I wanted to call, to reach out, to explain one more time. But I didn't. I had made my choice. He had made his. Now we both had to live with the consequences. I threw myself into work. New investments, new structures, new opportunities. I met with Nathan twice a week. We reviewed portfolios, adjusted strategies. The money kept growing, compounding, building. It gave me something to do, something to control, but it didn't fill the space Eric had left. 2 months after the signing, Nathan called with news. Eric had filed paperwork. Official dissolution. The separation was proceeding. He'd moved out of the house he'd shared with Olivia. Rented an apartment downtown. Small. 1 bedroom. Nathan had heard it from Victor's assistant. Gossip. Unofficial. But he thought I'd want to know. I thanked him. I hung up. I sat at my kitchen table. My son was alone, starting over, rebuilding a life I'd helped destroy. And I couldn't reach out, couldn't comfort, couldn't help, because I was the reason he needed rebuilding. 3 months after the signing, I saw Eric. Not intentionally, by accident. I was at the grocery store, buying the usual things: coffee, bread, soup. He was in the produce section, holding an apple, examining it. He looked thinner, tired, older somehow. I froze. My cart stopped moving. For a moment, I thought about turning around, walking away, avoiding the moment. But then he looked up. He saw me. Our eyes met across the produce bins. Neither of us moved. The store continued around us. Shopping carts, announcements, ordinary life. I raised my hand slightly. A small wave, tentative. He stared at me, his face unreadable. Then he put the apple back. He turned. He walked away. I stood there holding my cart. People moved around me, reached past me, went about their day. I couldn't move. I had just been erased by my own son. Dismissed, rejected, made invisible again. The invisibility I'd worked so hard to create had become real. But this time, I hadn't chosen it. I left my cart. I walked out of the store. I sat in my car. I gripped the steering wheel. I didn't cry. I still couldn't cry. But something inside me cracked. That night, I did something I hadn't done in months. I opened the box on my closet shelf. The one with photos, with memories, pictures of Eric as a baby, as a child, as a teenager, Mark holding him, me holding him, both of us together, birthday parties, school events, ordinary moments, the life we'd built before everything got complicated. I sat on my bedroom floor. I looked through every photo. I remembered every moment, every scraped knee, every good report card, every hard conversation. I had done everything for him, everything to protect him, everything to give him freedom. And in doing so, I'd lost him completely. The irony was sharp, precise, unbearable. I put the photos back. I closed the box. I went to bed. 4 months after the signing, Nathan called with different news. Eric had met someone, a nurse. Her name was Maya. They'd been seeing each other for a few weeks. Nothing serious yet, but steady. Nathan had heard it from Rebecca, who'd heard it from a mutual friend. The network of information, always active, always reporting. I asked Nathan not to tell me anymore. Whatever Eric did, whoever he met, it wasn't my business now. Nathan was quiet. Then he agreed. He said if I ever changed my mind, he was there. I thanked him. I hung up. I sat in my kitchen. Eric had met someone who didn't know about the money. The empire, The structures. Someone who saw him as just Eric. Product strategist. Regular guy. Maybe that was good. Maybe that was what he needed. Someone who loved him without agendas. Without calculations. Without forcing him into impossible choices. I was happy for him. And I was heartbroken for myself. 5 months after the signing, I received a letter. Not email. Not text. A physical letter in a physical envelope. Eric's handwriting on the front. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was one page. Handwritten. Brief. He said he'd been thinking. About everything. About us. He said he was angry. Hurt. Confused. He said he didn't understand why I'd done what I did. But he was trying to. He said he'd met someone. Maya. She was kind. Real. Grounded. When he'd told her about his mother, about the modest house and reliable car, she'd smiled. She'd said that sounded like someone with good priorities. He said maybe someday we could talk. Really talk. Not about money. Not about control. Not about who was right. Just about being family again. He signed it simply. Eric. I read it 7 times. Then I folded it carefully. I put it in the box with the photos. I sat at my kitchen table. For the first time in 5 months, I felt something other than emptiness. Not happiness. Not relief. Not forgiveness. But possibility. The smallest seed of maybe. Maybe someday we could rebuild. Maybe someday he would understand. Maybe someday we could be mother and son again. Not the version we'd been. That was gone. But something new. Something honest. Something real. I made dinner. I actually tasted it. I looked around my small kitchen. My quiet house. It was still a fortress. Still a sanctuary. But maybe, someday, it could be something more. A place where my son could visit. Where we could sit. And talk. And slowly rebuild trust. I didn't know if that would happen. But now, at least, I could hope. And hope, I'd learned, was harder to hold than money. But infinitely more valuable. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. I didn't write back immediately. Eric's letter sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days. I read it every morning. Every evening. I wanted to respond perfectly. To say exactly the right thing. But there were no perfect words for what we'd been through. On the 4th day, I wrote back. I kept it simple. Honest. I said I was glad he'd met someone who saw his worth. I said I understood his anger. I carried my own. I said I'd made choices I believed were right. Even if they hurt. I said when he was ready, I would be here. Not to explain. Not to justify. Just to listen. I signed it Mom. I mailed it that afternoon. Then I waited again. Weeks passed. No response. I told myself that was okay. He needed time. Time to heal. Time to rebuild. Time to decide if forgiveness was possible. I kept working. Kept walking. Kept living. The portfolio grew. The structures held. The empire continued. But I thought about Eric every day. About the letter. About Maya. About the life he was building without me. 6 months after the signing, Nathan called with an update. Charles's consulting contract was performing well. Reports on time. Work solid. The house was refinished. New roof. Fresh paint. Small repairs. Elaine had started volunteering. At a food bank. 3 days a week. They were rebuilding too. Quietly. Away from the spotlight. Nathan said Charles had asked about me once. Asked if I was well. If I was happy. Nathan had said he didn't know. Because he didn't. 7 months after the signing, I changed something. I started volunteering. At the library. Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. Helping seniors with computers. Teaching them email. Video calls. Basic navigation. It felt good. Useful. Connected to something beyond balance sheets. The librarian's name was Patricia. She was kind. Patient. She didn't know about my money. She just knew I showed up on time. The seniors I helped were grateful. They called me Helen, not Mrs. Parker. They told me about their grandchildren, their gardens, their small triumphs. I told them almost nothing about myself. But I listened, really listened, and slowly, something inside me began to thaw. 8 months after the signing, Eric called. Not texted, called. I was at home, making dinner. The phone rang. His name on the screen. My heart stopped. I answered. His voice was careful, controlled. He said he'd gotten my letter. He'd read it many times. He said he wanted to talk. In person. Soon. He said Maya wanted to meet me. If I was willing. I said yes. Of course. Whenever he wanted. He suggested Sunday. Lunch. A small cafe near his apartment. Casual. Public. Safe. I said I would be there. He said okay. Then he paused. He said he wasn't ready to forgive. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But he was ready to try understanding. I said that was enough. More than enough. We hung up. I stood in my kitchen. Phone in my hand. The dinner burned on the stove. I didn't care. My son had called. He wanted to meet. He wanted me to meet Maya. It was something. A beginning. Sunday came slowly. I changed clothes 3 times. Nothing felt right. Too formal looked like I was trying too hard. Too casual looked like I didn't care. I settled on simple. Slacks. Blouse. Light cardigan. The woman I'd always been. Before everything exploded, I arrived at the cafe 10 minutes early. I ordered water. I sat at a corner table. I watched the door. At noon exactly, Eric walked in. A woman was with him. Petite. Dark hair. Bright eyes. Scrubs under her jacket. Maya. She'd come straight from a shift. Eric saw me. He guided her over. I stood. My hands felt awkward. I didn't know what to do with them. Eric didn't hug me, but he didn't avoid my eyes either. He introduced Maya. She smiled. Warm. Genuine. She shook my hand. Her grip was firm. Confident. We sat. The table felt small. Intimate. A waiter appeared. We ordered. Coffee. Sandwiches. Simple things. Maya asked about my week. Normal conversation. Polite. I told her about the library. About teaching seniors computers. Her face lit up. She said that was wonderful. Meaningful work. She talked about her job. Pediatric ward. Long hours. Hard cases. Beautiful moments. She spoke with passion. With purpose. With none of the calculation I'd seen in Olivia. Eric watched her while she talked. His face was softer. Lighter. He looked happy. Really happy. In a way I hadn't seen in years. The food came. We ate. Maya asked if I'd always lived in this city. I said yes. Born here. Raised here. Built my life here. She asked about Eric's father. I told her about Mark. About the engineering work. About the partnership we'd built. I didn't mention the money. The sale. The empire. Eric had told her something. I didn't know what. I didn't ask. Maya said Eric talked about his dad often. With love. With respect. She said it was clear Mark had been a good man. I said yes. The best man I'd ever known. The conversation flowed. Careful but genuine. Maya did most of the talking. Eric listened. I listened. She told a story about a patient. A 5-year-old with a fear of needles. She'd spent an hour earning his trust. Playing games. Making him laugh. Finally, he'd let her draw blood. And he'd been so proud of himself. She said moments like that made the hard days worth it. I saw why Eric loved her. She was real, present, kind without agenda, everything Olivia had pretended to be but wasn't. After lunch, we walked outside together. The day was mild, sun breaking through clouds. Maya said she needed to get home. Another shift tomorrow. Early. She shook my hand again. She said it was nice to meet me. She said Eric talked about me sometimes. She was glad to finally put a face to the name. Then she squeezed Eric's hand. She told him to take his time. She walked to her car. She drove away. Eric and I stood on the sidewalk. Traffic moved past. People walked by. The city breathed around us. Eric spoke first. He said Maya didn't know everything. Just the basics. He'd told her I'd had money. That there'd been family conflict. That we were rebuilding. She'd said family was complicated. But worth fighting for. I said she seemed wonderful. Eric said she was. The best thing that had happened to him in a long time. I said I was happy for him. He nodded. He looked at me directly. He said he was still angry. Still hurt. But he understood why I'd done what I did. He didn't agree with it. But he understood. I said that was more than I deserved. He said maybe. Maybe not. He said he wanted to try. To rebuild something between us. Not what we had before. That was gone. But something new. Something honest. I asked what that would look like. He said he didn't know yet. We'd figure it out as we went. But it meant boundaries. Clear ones. No more secrets. No more manipulation. No more playing God. Just being family. Imperfect. Honest. Real. I said I could do that. He said we'd see. Then he surprised me. He hugged me. Brief. Tentative. But real. When he pulled back, his eyes were wet. He said he'd call. Soon. We'd have dinner. Just the two of us. He'd tell me about work. About Maya. About the life he was building. And I could tell him about mine. Not the portfolio. Not the holdings. Just the life. The library. The quiet routine. The ordinary days. He said he wanted to know his mother. Not the investor. Not the strategist. Just Helen. The woman who'd raised him. I said I wanted that too. He walked to his car. He drove away. I stood on the sidewalk. The sun was warm on my face. For the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. I had lost my invisibility. I had lost control. I had nearly lost my son. But maybe, in losing everything, I'd found something more important. The chance to be honest. To be seen. To be real. Not the woman in the navy dress. Not the silent investor. Not the hidden power. Just Helen Parker. Mother. Widow. Woman trying to do right in a complicated world. I walked to my car. I drove home through familiar streets. My small house waited. Paid off. Unchanged. Mine. I went inside. I made tea. I sat at my kitchen table. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt like I was home. Not in the house. In myself. The war was over. The empire was secure. The price had been paid. And my son had called. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything.